There's a lot of problems going on behind the scenes about this fight not happening. It's a fantastic fight. Everyone wants it, and I can't wait.
I was going to push back like almost entirely at you until you said that last line, and that makes a lot of sense. Non-stop action. There is never a dull moment in this fight. This is, I think, the most meaningful knockout of any fighter in years.
Welcome back to Against the Cage, the show where we break down the latest news in MMA, recap and preview the biggest cards, and interview the biggest fighters. So make sure to give us a like and subscribe if you don't want to miss any of that. My name is Jake Aryeh. I'm here joined by Scott Fontana and Erich Richter. And guys, we are now in the second half of 2025, so I think it's time that we look back at the first 6 months of this year in MMA and give out some mid-season awards, if you will. So let's start off with the big hitter, the one that everyone wants to know, the fighter of the half year. Erich, I will start with you. Who is your fighter of the half year?
So for me, it is pretty obvious, and I think that you guys are probably going to have the same answer. It's Joshua Van. He's fought 3 times this year, all wins. He's a young fighter. He's up and coming. He's going to be fighting for the title, so we think, later this year. The Brandon Royval win was amazing. He's got a late round finish that he had in Newark, which was awesome. Joshua Van has improved dramatically in ways that I don't think anyone expected. He has really burst onto the scene here. He is what makes the UFC great in a lot of ways, where they're able to develop talent. And, I don't know, maybe they shouldn't even get credit for that. Maybe it should be just the amount of fighters that they have. Like, eventually they just develop at a point. But maybe the UFC PI has something to do with this. I'm not sure. But for me, they're able to develop talent and develop stars in a way that Joshua Van is on the inside track to fighter of the year overall. And I know that there's some other contenders here, but for me, it's obvious Joshua Van is the fighter of the half year up until this point. If he wins the title, he could be a shoe-in for fighter of the year for the full year.
Scott, what do you have to say to that?
I was going to push back like almost entirely at you until you said that last line. And that makes a lot of sense. If he does close out the year winning the championship, then honestly, I think you probably could give him fighter of the year. Right now, he is not my fighter of the half year. He's done a credible job. Absolutely the breakthrough fighter of the year. We're not really doing that award today, but he deserves certainly all the accolades you want to put on him. Except in this case, I am giving fighter of the half year to Merab Dvalishvili, who opened the year, don't forget, as a deep underdog to Umar Nurmagomedov. The collective betting public did not see him winning that fight. And here we are, 6 months later. He's made 2 successful title defenses this year, erased any doubts regarding Sean O'Malley, who he'd already beaten pretty, semi-convincingly in the first time, finishes him right in our backyard in Newark. He wants 4 fights this year. He might only get to 3, but I think right now, not only does he have the inside track, I think it's very well lined up for Merab to be able to leave this year as kind of an almost no-brainer fight of the year contender. But look, I understand your what you're outlining here, Erich. I think there's just a difference in the level of fighter we have up to this point. Joshua Van can change that, though, if he does win that title, because that's where he gets to that next level. You know what I mean?
The way that I look at it is that Van goes from unranked to #1 contender in 6 months, and then maybe champion if he wins the title. So that would just be an unbelievable story. And he's just so good. He is just so damn good. Like, his striking is phenomenal. It's impressive what he's done in a short amount of time at a young age as well. He's very young. He'd be one. I would love to look at the list, but if he won the title this year, he'd be one of the youngest. He won't be the youngest. Obviously, John Jones, that might never change, but one of the youngest champions in UFC history.
As you guys know, I talked to Joshua Van last week. You should go watch that video, by the way. It was a nice interview, nice chat. Good guy. He gave me some interesting recommendations too for Burmese food if I ever get the chance to try some. That was off camera. But I will never forget Joshua Van for the fact that, yeah, you're talking about a young guy. He is the first athlete I have ever interviewed who is closer in age to my children than myself.
Wow.
There we go. Just for openness, I had Merab as my fighter of the year, but Erich, not gonna lie, like Scott, when you said Josh Van, I was like, I don't know about that one. But you mentioned 3 fights in 6 months. That's kind of insane. And now he's also, it's not just 3 fights in 6 months. Sometimes you've heard of, people, being very active, but he is now getting a title shot. So those 3 fights.
What I
Pretty
think
good.
is most impressive as well is that Van's coming off of, I don't know what his contract is, but I'm sure that it's not nearly, definitely isn't what Merab is getting. So the fact that he's fighting 3 times in 6 months and he doesn't have the resources that Merab Dvalishvili would, I find that even more impressive. I find it to go from an undercard fighter to a main card fighter, I find that unbelievable.
I'm gonna actually push back on that one though, dude, because he is a young fighter. He should be fighting as often as this. This is the point because you're not at that championship level. You should be taking 3, 4 fights in a year, as much as you can get in the UFC. Because he got there very quickly. He realistically could have taken even more, but he was just too darn good. They had to sign him. He didn't even go through 2 tender series. He was there, and rightfully so. So yeah, but yeah, like young fighters ought to be fighting.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep this moving along because we have a few more awards to get to. Speaking of Joshua Van, we'll see if his name pops up again on this list. But I'll throw it to you, Scott. What is your fight of the half year?
This is where I'm going to bring Joshua Van into it. And I think it's almost a no-brainer to do it here as opposed to the other place. No disrespect to Erich. It's just the way I see it. Joshua Van against Brandon Royval was like a freaking tornado of flyweight fun, right? Full 15 minutes, non-stop action. There is never a dull moment in this fight. Set the UFC record for significant strikes in a 3-round fight cumulatively, and they did it in a balanced way. It was actually Joshua Van who got outstruck ever so slightly, but his were typically more meaningful, right, when they would land. Third all time among any length of a fight, too. So we're talking about this was even more productive than almost every other fight that's ever happened in mixed martial arts history, and they did it in 3 rounds. What more could you want? This is easily my fight of the year.
Erich, anything different?
So going oddball, I figured that one would be up there, but I didn't want to give Joshua Van 2 awards.
Fair.
I had that coming into it.
He
But
could have them.
He could.
I also thought, and I also figured that I feel like the chalk was Merab and then Van Royval. For me, I'm going fight of the year. 2 fighters that are not in the UFC that would be top 5, definitely top 10 in the division. Usman Nurmagomedov versus Paul Hughes
Good shout.
in Dubai, January 25th. Paul Hughes, in my opinion, robbed of a decision. And now this sets the stage for a rematch that has not happened yet, that should be happening. There's a lot of problems going on behind the scenes about this fight not happening. And in the PFL, it's a kind of a circus over there, trying to get this fight made, and they're having issues. I think that this is, I didn't put this as my second half most anticipated fight. I hope that it happens. There's no date for it, so I'm not sure if that was a criteria for it, but for a most anticipated fight. But for me, Paul Hughes versus Usman Nurmagomedov was an unbelievable fight. I love both of them. I think that they're both incredible fighters, and that is my fight of the year. I think that they're two. If they're in the UFC, they'd be absolute megastars.
I like that as an honorable mention. I guess we could call it for most anticipated fight. So that's a good one. I'd love both of your answers. For me, in terms of just giving a straight answer, yes, I put Van versus Royval, but Erich, I absolutely love that shout for Usman versus Paul
Good
Hughes.
deep cut. I mean, semi deep cut. We often think about UFC first, right? But for you to bring in something outside of there in 2025 is totally viable and a good choice. I like it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the KO of the half here. I'm gonna actually go first on this one, and I'm gonna see if you guys have my answer, because I feel like you said before, Erich, with the first 2, there's sort of like pretty obvious ones that you'll expect to have. I've got Mauricio Rufy knocking out Bobby Green versus via a spinning wheel kick. Scott or Erich, do either of you have those?
I
don't.
That. I had an honorable mention that I was gonna go with. If I tried not to go chalk for everything. Gustavo Oliveira with his spinning back elbow last week at PFL Europe, I thought was a KO of the year contender. Again, another PFL shout. But I thought that was an incredible KO, not as highly known. Obviously, it just happened, so fresh in my mind. But sue me. That's my honorable mention. But I did have Mauricio Huffy against Bobby Green, spinning wheel kick as well. So, Scott, all you, buddy.
I have to go with. I think this bears mentioning. You guys heard of Ilia
Ah,
Topuria?
God damn it.
Are you first? Whoa, sir. Language. Uh, but in this case, I think you look at what Charles Oliveira said this week, right? He just said this week he has never been hit harder than when Ilia Topuria crushed him with that beautiful right hand. We have seen more violent knockouts this year, right? You guys named one, for sure, named a couple, but this is, I think, the most meaningful knockout of any fighter in years because it pushed him into this new stratosphere of stardom, especially in the US, but also likely enhanced him worldwide, where he's already been a big deal. I think you have to account for, in this case, just how much momentum was created because of this knockout. It wasn't just that it flattened Charles Oliveira in a way that he's never been before. It created something bigger. And I think the fact that they were willing to put this knockout immediately out there on social media and all that kind of thing, the UFC, they wanted everyone to see this. That speaks to how big of a knockout this was. So that's my knockout of the half year.
Most meaningful, I could definitely agree. Any notes on that, Eric?
Good argument. The spinning wheel kick was awesome. Like, it was just so rare. You so rarely see a spinning wheel kick. But I
Shades
agree.
Vincent Barboza a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And it was just so impressive the athleticism that went involved in that. But Ilia Topuria is such a star now, and we can talk about this on a different date. But Ilia Topuria is the biggest star in the UFC. Doesn't even really seem that close at this point.
Yeah, so let's move
No,
on.
not
We will,
anymore.
we will get to a similar topic, but let's talk about the submission of the half year. Scott, let's start with you. What is your submission for the first 6 months of this year?
So I went with John Silva getting the ninja choke on Bryce Mitchell. It was a picture perfect sub, right? He had been the more dangerous grappler this entire fight against a known grappler. Um, just kind of stripped him down and made it very clear who was the better fighter, who was the better fighter in the realm that he's the better fighter in, Bryce Mitchell. So that it kind of just took everything he had and then he got him with the submission as well. That made him quit, right? That I think also helped push John Silva into that next level of contender at 145 pounds. Definitely raised his profile, a bigger deal. Best of all, Mitchell takes the L after spouting all his lunatic dreams about going fishing with Hitler and he would have been so much better if all. Ugh. Anything that speeds up this guy's exit from the top of the sport is good in my book. So awesome.
Understandable. Eric, what do you got?
Reasonable. I was gonna put him for biggest loser, but I didn't really even want to say his name. But yeah,
He's a loser. He's a loser. That's fair.
for sure. I also had buggy choke or ninja choke, buggy choke, however you want to call it, by Gene Silva. So, Jake, you got anything else for me?
Yes, I have. Well, this is a night that we saw two great submissions. I'll give my honorable mention second, but my first, Kayla Harrison versus Juliana Pena. That Kimura, absolutely nasty. Just honestly, the fact that it was a Kimura is why it's at the top. It's a championship fight, Kimura. We haven't seen one of those in a while. I feel like if we have, correct me, Scott.
They're
But
much less common in the UFC these days.
yeah,
For sure.
I love hunting for Kimuras myself, mainly off my back. I don't really spend too much time on top as a bit of a smaller guy, but gotta love the Kimura. And then have to mention Marab's. Eric, you called it a buggy choke, ninja choke, north-south choke at the time, whatever you want to call it. We'll call it the machine
North-south.
choke.
I think I called it
I believe
north-south.
he called it the machine choke at the presser,
Yes.
right? That was what he labeled it.
Yes, the machine choke. So that was also a great one. But let's move on to the personality of the half year. This one stumped me a little bit, but I had a light bulb moment a little bit. I'll let you guys wait on that one. Let's start with Eric, because I know your box office. Who is your personality of the half year?
Box office is the biggest fighter in the UFC, and it's not even close. It is Ilia Topuria, hailing from Spain. He is everything that the UFC could possibly want. He's a big European star. He's got a big following in the Americas and the United States as well. He speaks English. He's good looking. He has good one-liners. Even like that one-liner that he had against Alexander Volkanovski. He was like, oh, you give Volkanovski. I was like, we don't want to do that to Alexander Volkanovski again. Like that's a great line. Like, and it's true, honestly. Like anybody that hears that, like, yeah, like that's kind of what it is. So Ilia Topuria definitely personality of the year for me. Doesn't really even seem that close. But I would love to hear other arguments. I've also had issues with personalities in the sport recently. So call me a little bit of a skeptic of the development of personalities in the sport recently. But Scott, I'll hand it over to you.
You know, I had trick. I thought this was a little tricky too. I had a little bit of trick because it's very loosely defined,
Yes.
right? For me, this is probably a little bit of a personal preference kind of thing here because of the type of personality that I gravitate to. It's Marab. He is exactly the type of fun that I am looking for from fighters when they're not fighting. Yeah, the story that he and Kayla Harrison told to me last month during our media time with them, him eating the penguin food, the fish,
Yeah.
is just it's either endearingly odd or oddly endearing, whatever you want to call it. But I can't get enough of him. He's fun to talk to. He is easily just the most injection of pure fun in terms or like chaotic good, right? On that scale, he's chaotic good.
Yes.
And I like that.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I like both of your shouts, and like you mentioned, and like sort of I prefaced, this was a little bit of a strange one for me because there's not a lot of criteria. The reason why I didn't go with Ilia Topuria is because I feel like he sort of had already established himself as a personality, especially after that Max KO at the end of the year. And Marab, he's sort of done that as well. But I completely understand your guys' picks. My one, I'm gonna go with Gene Silva. And just because of how much his personality has sort of come out since the beginning of the year, I feel like he's become sort of a new star. Definitely not at the same level as Ilia Topuria or Marab, for that matter. But he's someone that he's sort of like bumped up the lore of the fighting nerds a little bit. The barking, even with his trash talk in Portuguese being translated by our good friend Fabiano, it's like it works, I think. And I'll give one more, and this is sort of actually out of the brain of Erich from when he and I were doing our stint while Scott was recovering. Sean Brady. Erich convinced me a lot on the personality of Sean Brady. I think he's great. He's got very good trash talk when you're talking about box office. Erich loves box office. I think Sean Brady's a great personality of the year.
I'm here to be
Yeah.
entertained.
So let's move on to the biggest loser of the half year. And I'm gonna take this one, if you guys don't mind. You mentioned Bryce Mitchell. I'm going Bryce Mitchell. That's, for me, this was a very easy pick. I was like, at first, I was racking my brain. I was like, I don't want to call anyone a loser. Like, that's not nice, you know? I was having a bit of a hard time. So I started going through the UFC rankings. I was like, heavyweight. These guys are, can't say John Jones. He's still got all this stuff, right? He didn't even fight. And then I arrive at featherweight. Boom. Bryce Mitchell's name right there on a silver platter. I don't have to say anything more. Erich, who do you got?
Can I just
Scott.
say though, Jake, you naming Bryce Mitchell the biggest loser based on that, I mean, he's kind of the biggest loser all the time, if that's the way it is. But yes, he particularly lost this year, not
Yes.
only in the cage, but like I mentioned, but also before it, like I also mentioned. So yes, that is definitely unique to this year, this half year,
Yes.
right? But he's a perennial contender for this award in the way that you interpreted it.
Yeah.
I took it a little bit of a different way because yes, he is the biggest loser all the time. But the biggest loser, and I don't mean this in to say that he is a loser, but it's what he lost the most this year. He lost the most, I think, from what he could have had. Arman Sarukian, unfortunately. I mean, he might have been the light heavyweight champion today. We might be talking about him instead of talking about Ilia Topuria. Who knows? Instead, he never made it to the scale for his huge January fight, of course. Islam Makhachev. Now Makhachev is gone. He's up to welterweight, so that fight passed him over. He was passed over again for the vacant title fight. Ended up going to Topuria and Charles Oliveira, like we mentioned. And now the new champ might not even fight him next, even though he's the obvious number one contender. You can you can turn this around, right? I think he's got time to turn the year around. Potentially, he could end up leaving the year with the belt. You just don't know. But right now, he lost way too much, and that's unfortunate, but it is true.
Eric, what do you got?
Both of your guys' answers are better than mine. Armand, I love that shout. I had Tom Aspinall as the biggest loser of the year, and I know he's technically the champion now, but I just think that he could have gotten so much with that John fight, and to have John bail on it is just so. And also, like, he hasn't fought in a while, so like the fans haven't really connected with him throughout this whole thing, and that fight hasn't happened, and now it's like he's going to be given the belt. The heavyweight division's kind of in flux right now, kind of a shell of what it should be. It's tough with the way that it kind of shook out for him. So I call him he's definitely not the biggest loser when I look at it with, he is the champion, but he's the biggest loser in my mind as he's not going to fight for the belt. Or he's not going to fight John Jones for the belt, and he's just going to be given the belt sort of de facto, which is kind of an unsatisfying way for it to go.
For him as well, yeah, I'm sure he would agree. That's not the way that he wanted to get it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Eric. I do disagree. I just don't think he lost all that. I'm not even saying just because my pick is the one I prefer. I don't think he lost that much, honestly. I push back a little bit because yes, he is the champion. He doesn't. I mean, frankly, he doesn't even need to fight John Jones anymore. Now he gets to be the champion with a lot of runway in front of him, but to potentially get an extended heavyweight title run in here, who knows? I don't know that he lost all that much. He did lose that fight, and that probably would have been potentially bigger payday. Who knows? I mean, the UFC doesn't give out. Yeah, well, it would have been a huge payday for John. And Tom's not really necessarily the one who's going to get that much different. I'm sure he gets something, but I don't think he lost as much as it looks. And yeah, so that's my 2 cents on the matter. I disagree, but I understand what you're saying.
You know who did
If we're
lose?
going with
The fans. That's who lost.
The fans are definitely losers there.
Fans lost. The fans on that one. Yeah, I'll give you that.
We're the biggest
and
losers.
Dana lost in that one because he said he wanted it. He said it was going to happen, and now it's just not going to happen.
If we're going by conventional payday structure, which we haven't really gotten updates on, then Tom lost considerable amounts of money because he'd be fighting for a title with pay-per-view points, and he's a champion. So if we're going conventional, but it's unclear if that's even a big part of their pay structure. From what I've heard, it's not.
Well, we were just talking about probably the most anticipated fight of the year. The first 6 months have came and went, so let's talk about the next 6 months. What is your guys' most anticipated fight of the second half of the year? I'm going to hand it off to you, Scott. What is your most anticipated fight for the rest of the year?
I'll give you my main pick, and then if you guys don't say it, I'll give you an honorable mention here. I'm starting off with Kayla Harrison against Amanda Nunes. This is a fight we waited literal years for. Even when they were still teammates, I mean, people wanted this fight, right? Like it looked touch and go for years, whether we would even get it. They're in different organizations, they're teammates. Amanda Nunes retires, then Kayla Harrison finally comes over. Is it really going to happen? And, now we're on the track. It kind of just looks like a certainty, right? It's the biggest women's fight in probably 8 years or so, basically, ever since Amanda Nunes fought and was able to defeat in that crazy 1-minute fight Chris Cyborg. But also, I mean, frankly, this is one of the 10 biggest fights, I think, in the last 10 years, gender regardless, at least on paper, right? So I think this is a giant fight.
All righty. Eric, what do you got to say?
Had the same one. That super excited for that fight. My honorable mention would be if it ends up happening, which I've heard conflicting reports on. Usman Nurmagomedov 2 versus Paul Hughes 2 would be my honorable mention. But yeah, I mean, like everything that you said, Scott, it's a fantastic fight. Everyone wants it, and I can't wait.
I love that Usman Paul Hughes shout. I feel like if they do make that one happen, that could be one of it might be the biggest fight that PFL's put on. I'm interested. I want to watch it.
They do have Francis Ngannou.
No, I know.
They don't have an opponent for him.
And that
it
last
doesn't matter. He was still the number 1 heavyweight.
I know, but after how that last fight went, I actually personally am more interested. This is just going off of personal feelings and interest, which is not reflective of everyone else's, of course. But I think I'm more interested in watching that Paul Hughes fight than I was with the first, the only fight Ngannou's had in the PFL, but with his next one too. I think that's a great shout. For me, by far, This one I didn't even look anything up or like see if I was missing anything out. I knew it straight away. Dricus du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev. It's a pretty obvious pick, but like my God, like
Such a good
finally, well, you know, Khamzat's we're seeing
That
him
was my
fight for
honorable
a belt.
mention, Jake.
Yeah, well, there we go. So
I'm glad I didn't steal it from you.
yeah, thank you, appreciate that. So yeah, I don't have to say too much more. It's just like it's gonna be a great fight.
I'll throw in a few more for you. If you don't have much else to say, I will. I mean,
Go for it.
both men have a lot to prove in this fight. We've waited years to see a Chimaev title challenge, right? And we're only 5 weeks away now. Hopefully everything continues on the smooth sailing and we actually get it, right?
Yeah.
You never know with visas and all that stuff. But as for DDP, a win here really starts to cement him as like a dominant middleweight champion to the point where we're starting to get those questions. Who can actually beat this guy, right? We
Yeah.
always hear that. And I think we're getting close. This would probably be the one if he's able to win it. High potential for violence and excitement too. Great style clash. I think it's a fascinating fight, and I love that you picked it, Jake.
Thank you. The way that I would describe it in summary of what you just said, it's like an immovable object versus an unstoppable force. Like truly, like sometimes we say that about fights. I feel like that's actually it. Like Dricus has been holding this belt, and we've been like, just honestly through his whole career, like who's gonna beat this guy. And no one's able to do it against all odds, seemingly, And Khamzat.
There's a lot of there's a lot of trashing his style, right? Because he has kind of like a weird, unorthodox style, but frankly, it's effective, and like you're saying, I guess
he keeps winning, So very
that's all that
excited.
matters.
You guys know what the line is of that fight?
It's got to be Khamzat favored.
Yep.
Mine is 210.
It opened a little higher. It opened like minus 300. Khamzat's come down considerably. Dricus down to plus 150 and Khamzat around minus 190. It's one of the lowest
That was
odds
close.
I've had
That was
in a
close.
long time. Very
Yeah.
close.
Good shout. Yeah, so excited for that one. Okay, so let's since we're talking about the second half of this year, let's round out with the biggest second half of the year storyline. Not what's occurred, things that we're looking forward to for these next 6 months. Eric, I'll start with you. What is your storyline that you're looking forward to most?
What I've been talking about for the past 6 months. The UFC media rights deal is definitely a huge storyline for the rest of this year. I had been told by multiple sources really close to the situation that they were going to announce a new deal during International Fight Week, and International Fight Week has now come and gone, and there is no announcement yet. I think that this is fascinating. I'm very interested to see where negotiations go now that the White House card is being dangled in front of the TV partners' eyes right now. They are definitely using that as a negotiation tactic to get some more money, and I don't blame them. That Conor McGregor post on Instagram where he posted a screenshot of him asking Dana White to headline the White House card and Dana agreeing, that was definitely not by accident. That screenshot has probably been in multiple PowerPoints and sent to ESPN and Netflix and the two main people that they are in negotiations with. And I would say that is going to be a very interesting saga to follow. I cannot imagine that this flies into August, but I didn't think it would fly this long either. So now we wait and see. This is going to be an interesting next few weeks of negotiations. Definitely high pressure, and those executives on all sides are going to be working and burning the candle pretty dry over the next 3-ish weeks.
Yeah, no, I mean, we could not have moved on from this segment without talking about that one. Very much looking forward to it. Scott, what do you got?
Look, it's obvious that is the storyline of the second half because it actually reached the second half. Like Eric said, it was not really expected to get here, but it is also, in theory, going to wrap up sooner than later. We also have to assume. So I'll give you one that's going to continue kind of throughout the year. Hopefully a little bit as kind of like let's say it's a secondary kind of thing. Can the UFC capitalize on Ilia Topuria's stardom or find other ways to create more stars? I mean, the UFC is always at its most engaging when outside of our little MMA bubble here, when there are crossover guys and gals, and there just aren't a ton of them right now. Can they get Kayla Harrison to that next level? Is there a way to get Paddy Pimblett even bigger than he is now without losing too much shine if they do a Topuria fight next, right? Can Tom Aspinall go to that next level? You know, it's heavyweight's clear for him now. Who knows? Does Alex Pereira's name still have juice? I want to see what comes next. So that fascinates me.
Yeah, you mentioned it sort of briefly in there, Scott. I'm sure you both could have guessed what my answer would be. It's Tommy Aspinall. What is going to happen with Tommy Aspinall? This whole heavyweight conundrum, which we kind of we did a little bit of a preview either last week or 2 weeks ago. But yeah, I'm really interested to see if they do give him a heavyweight or if Pereira decides to move up, if that's the decision that they want to go with. I think that's the biggest fight that they could make for Tom, and probably the most satisfying sort of conclusion to, not conclusion, because of course he's the newly crowned champion, he's got, you know, more fights to do, but like this, you know, sort of tying a bow on this whole handing off the belt to Tom. I feel like this would be somewhat satisfactory after that John Jones situation happened. So that's my biggest.
Still a little tinfoil hat, right? We're not quite
very
there.
much. We are nowhere near there yet.
It's you know, it's like you're saying, there is definitely intrigue of what, like, why don't we have anything with Poatan yet? It certainly begs the question and lets the mind start to wander. So yeah, I like that. I like that as a good outside of kind of the macro level. That's a little more micro. I think that's a good one, Jake.
Thank you. So yeah, that's my biggest storyline. Let us know for all of these topics, what is your fighter of the year, fight of the year, KO of the year? Do you disagree with our picks? Do you agree with them? Let us know in the comments below. But one more storyline that Erich prefaced, that sort of is going to be an ongoing storyline until I guess we get an answer on it. July 4th of next year is this White House card that Donald Trump basically announced to the world on July 3rd as he was kicking off the United States of America's year-long 250th birthday celebration. Out of nowhere, he announces that the White House would be holding a UFC card on July 4th, 2026, which 2026, which coincidentally is on a Saturday night, in case you were wondering. After this is announced, some screenshots are released. As you mentioned, Erich, Conor, Dana. Dana seems on board. Conor McGregor's like, I want to come back and fight on this card. John Jones is saying, you know, 2 weeks of retirement was enough. He wants to come back for this White House card. I gotta ask you guys, Erich, I'll go with you first. What are the odds that either of these guys, and you are a betting guy, so give us maybe a money line answer. What are the odds that either of these guys come and do this White House card?
When you're asking either, you know, originally I had like plus 125, which is about 45% chance that it happens. Either, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like it could be even higher, 60%. Are we assuming that the card happens?
Yes, this is assuming that the card happens.
Could be as high as 60%, which is about minus 150.
Wow.
There's no way that if that card happens, that both fighters don't ask for it. And that's what I think is the most interesting part of this, is how the UFC is going to navigate both fighters wanting to headline the card. I think that there's a chance that both of those fighters are on it. I think that there's so much power that comes along with being fighting at the White House, and honestly, cozying up with Donald Trump has its advantages, and you can't say that it doesn't. So Conor McGregor, who's visited the White House, has said that he's running for the president of Ireland. There's an advantage of headlining that card. It's something that the UFC can offer that they could never offer before. It's more than money. It's more than pay-per-view buys. It's more than social media clout. It's power. There's power involved in that card when you, especially with Conor McGregor wanting to be in politics, especially with, you've seen John Jones doing the Trump dance, and you know he's definitely a fan of his, right? Those two things have a lot of power, and the UFC is going to have to navigate this in a way that's a little bit more challenging when both fighters are trying to how much do you love me, right? That's what it's going to be. John Jones is going to be like, I want to headline the card. It's like, okay. Conor McGregor's like, I want to headline the card. And they're going to be like, okay, so we're going to have to pick one. And then what? That's what the most interesting thing about this story is. They're going to have to decide who is the bigger star, who they want headlining the most important card in the history of the promotion. Scott, okay.
Yeah. Scott, what do you got?
I'll keep it a little simpler. There's 0% chance that Conor McGregor headlines this card. There is 0% chance that Conor McGregor headlines a fight
agree.
card at the White House next year. 0.
Don't agree.
John
Don't agree.
Jones, 20%. That's fine. I'm going to put it at 20%. I'm not handicapping it, but I'm going to say there's a 20% chance that John Jones headlines. I think it's just too difficult to get these people to put pen to paper and figure everything out. And then, frankly, there's too many variables at play that keep these guys out of the cage anyway. I mean, especially in John Jones' case. How many times has he been booked for a big fight that kind of fell apart? I'm going to bring it up a little bit later. Just be patient. I'm coming to it later in the show. But yeah, I don't think it's highly likely that either one of these guys actually headlines a card that actually happens at the White House.
Eric,
I don't agree. I definitely don't agree. I think that it's something new that they can offer to a fighter that no one could. This will be not just US popular, this will be world renowned event. Even if there's like no fans there, right? And I was like trying to think about the logistics of this, and it would definitely be a logistical nightmare. I mean, back in the day, I think it was Strikeforce was doing like shows outside on a beach, and like you're gonna have to do like stuff like that. It's gonna be a little weird. And like you probably have to put a tent up to like cover yourself on rain, which would be weird. It's gonna be weird no matter what. But I would say that even if you get like 3,000 fans there, it would the amount of notoriety that this card would have is so valuable, and there's so much involved in it, especially when you are going to be when you add in the political side of it. I see them either fighter begging to be a part of this card rather than the UFC coming to them. I think it's going to be the other way around. I think the UFC is going to hold all the cards here, and that they're going to be able to go to Conor's going to go to them. Sign me up right now, I'm in. John Jones, sign me up right now, I'm in. And then they're going to have to be the one deciding. And that's what I think is the interesting storyline of this.
I see both of your points, but I will say I am more leaning towards Scott on the Conor McGregor front. I words out of that guy's mouth sometimes just mean absolutely nothing to me. Like at this point, I don't know. It's pretty tough to take whatever he's saying seriously. So for Conor, I'm a little bit more, I don't know if you would call it optimistic, but I'll say 20%. John Jones.
For John Jones?
Sorry?
For John Jones?
No, this is for Conor McGregor. Did I say
Okay.
John Jones? Okay, 20% for Conor McGregor. For John Jones, I would probably I'll go 50%. You know what? Because I think this actually would entice him. The question is, who would he be facing? So let's go on to that for the next question.
By the way, that leaves 30% chance that it's anyone else.
Yeah.
That's true.
So
That's your math. I just want you to know that.
He's more optimistic than I am.
Well, no, I'm saying for I guess that is.
If you combine
That is exactly how math works, sir. We're talking about a pie. You've given 70% of the pie to these two individuals.
Yeah, that is true, huh? I might have to. I can't do all this math right now. We're losing too much time. But so I just mentioned who would the main event be? First question: who would you guys want in a dream scenario? Let's start with Scott. Who would you want to headline a card at the White House?
I'm going to give you a dream scenario, and it may not be the most patriotic necessarily, but I think it's the biggest one. You put your best foot forward with the most titanic fight you can make among active fighters. 1A and 1A, Ilia Topuria, Islam Makhachev. Do it.
I like it. Eric?
I like it. Definitely like it. Yeah, that's a better answer than what I had. I wanted Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler.
Honestly, I probably could have bet that one. But no, it's an American on the card, like you said, Conor, box office. I can understand that. For me, and I commented on this is the first time I'm like not very active on X, but I was like I have to, because like there's a chance that John Jones looks through his comments, so I was like there's a chance. I commented on his like, well, that lasted 2 weeks thing. I was like, hey man, 4th of July, like, there's no other way you could do it. You got to fight the British champion, like, to celebrate our independence. I feel like that's the perfect storyline, of an American fighting.
I actually kind of like that, Jake, the way you framed that.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
If you're going to be fighting at the White House on the 4th of July,
Yes.
and there is a British champion at heavyweight and you don't fight that guy, come on, man. Like, what are you doing?
Jon Jones is the biggest American male star. So yes, it definitely makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's my one, hands down. But what we want is not always what we get. So the next question, what do you expect will be the main event? Erich, I'll start with you. What do you expect we would get?
That's what I expect the main event to be.
Alrighty.
Paul versus Jon Jones. That was my expectation. When he posted that he was going back to the testing pool, whether he even pulled himself out, I don't know. Like, again, you have to take what these fighters say with a grain of salt, but there's definitely some interest there. I would expect, I would hope and expect that to be the headline.
John and Tom?
Yeah, Jon Jones versus Tom.
I would love that. Scott, what about you?
In the scenario where this event actually happens,
yes, yeah.
I would expect Kayla Harrison against somebody. It could be maybe to add a little intrigue. Maybe they try to put something together with Kayla Harrison against Valentina Shevchenko. Make it a big, couple of biggest names in women's fighting to follow up against Amanda Nunes. I think that's the type of thing we would be looking at. Someone who is an Olympic hero, right? 2-time Olympian. Very much would be on board with this. I can only imagine she'd be gung-ho about it. She is the probably the biggest American star in the sport among active fighters right now, because Jon Jones, I'm not going to call him an active fighter right now. So it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. So I'm at a little bit of, I don't see Jon taking the Tom fight. I don't know why. I just don't see it. So I'm going to give another scenario. You've got Jon, who's not a champion. Alex Pereira is not a champion. This is a year from now also, so like all of our answers, we can give ourselves a little bit of grace if this thing actually does end up happening and it's not one of these. Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira. I feel like that could be one that they go with. Alrighty, but one thing that is happening for sure is this UFC Nashville card. Fingers crossed, nothing bad happens there. We've got Derek Lewis taking on Taliesin Teixeira. Scott, we were talking about this heavyweight division earlier. How badly does the UFC need Teixeira to win?
They really do. Taliesin Teixeira is the new blood they need to inject into this division, because we desperately need to see some new names that can be on tap for either Tom Aspinall or whoever ends up taking the belt from Tom Aspinall, right? Taliesin Teixeira is interesting. He's young. He's not Derek Lewis, where Derek Lewis is very much a known quantity. That would be an interesting fight. Tom Aspinall and Derek Lewis. It's still a new thing, but I think there's probably a hunger for everybody, especially in the UFC. They need some new names out there. We're just not going to get that much more to Derek Lewis. It's the reality. The age is going to catch up.
I don't have a big opinion on the fight. I'm not betting this fight specifically. So
All right.
it doesn't really do a lot for me. It doesn't really do a whole lot for me. I'm not overly interested in it.
Alrighty, so then let's get to your fight to watch. What other fights on this card are you interested in watching, Erich?
Wonder Boy versus Gabriel Bonfim. I don't think that Wonder Boy is washed. The odds would tell you something different. Again, not betting this fight either, but I think that I think that the odds are crazy. The odds are crazy on this whole card, and it's an older card. There's a lot of older fighters in it. Wonder Boy being one, Derek Lewis being another. There's a lot of older fighters on here. I think that Wonder Boy versus Bonfim should be a very interesting fight. But again, a lot of older fighters on this card, so we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, that's my fight to watch.
How about you, Scott?
I went with Nate Landwehr against Morgan Charrier. I think this is kind of the type of fight that has fight of the night written all over it, and I think probably even Erich would agree with that one. It's definitely the fight that if it doesn't deliver, we're pretty disappointed.
Yep.
Fair enough. I will definitely be on the lookout for those on Saturday night. But now that we've talked about some of the fights on this card, Scott, why don't you give us the event rating for this UFC Fight Night?
Thank you, Jake.
I got
The
you.
event rating for this is a 20. Now, I was actually kind of surprised for it because I don't think it's all that great a card, right? I think what we have is actually a lot of depth in terms of level of fighter, right? Like almost all the guys and gals on here are very much UFC level. And I think that's what this rating speaks to more than the fact that we're actually getting top tier fights. Like probably from a rankings perspective, I could tell you the best fight is actually Wonder Boy against Gabriel Bonfim. Taliesin Teixeira is a very much a lower ranked top 100 guy. This is his big chance to leap in, but it's still a big chance. We're not looking at, oh, two Titans kind of going up that we often see in these main events. And that didn't happen here. So I don't know. It's interesting. I could see it going, anyway. I could see it being good. I could see it being not so good.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but 20 is one of the lowest we've ever had for UFC.
20 is it's probably the lowest American on the road event that we've had this year.
Oh yeah,
I think.
not out of the Apex.
We're
sure.
not out of the Apex and not in a different country, which can sometimes change things, right? So that is, yeah, it's definitely on the lower side, but this is still, frankly, this is not terrible. This is way better than some of the Apex shows we were getting.
Yeah.
Fair enough, but that's a good thing to point out, Eric. It's sometimes with these Saturday nights, I'm like assuming it's going to the Apex, and when you hear some of these scores. But Eric, why don't you take it away for 3 bets in 3 minutes?
And before we get started here with 3 bets in 3 minutes, how about a shout out for the card? The week before, we had Sergio Pettis plus 210, Ilia Topuria by knockout minus 150. One of our better weeks here at 3 bets in 3 minutes. We're going to get started here. Over on the prelims, I don't love this fight card from a betting perspective, to be fair. I think there's a lot of older fighters that are on their way out. But I still got some picks for you, don't worry. And we're going to start in the prelims here, and we're going to go with Jake Matthews here at plus 135 over on DraftKings. And, Chidi Njokuani is a training partner of Israel Adesanya. Is a very good striker. And he's definitely showed that his takedown defense is improving to the point where, he's not taking as much damage, he's not getting insta-submitted anymore or anything like that. But when it comes to, from a betting perspective, Matthews opened here as a favorite. He's now been bet to plus 135 underdog status. You got to remember that Jake Matthews did fight Michael Morales, and he actually had a pretty competitive decision loss to the undefeated fighter who's now competing for, titles or is getting into the title picture at a very crowded weight class. For me, I think that we're getting Matthews here, the better mixed martial artist, the more experienced grappler, and he's also a solid striker in his own right. I don't see him getting knocked out here, and I understand everyone's talking about the Matthew Schmellisberger fight, and, he made Schmellisberger look good. And Joe Kwani's had not some great performances either. I don't think either of these fighters are very good, but I take the overall mixed martial artist over more of just a kickboxer. Joe Kwani is more of just a kickboxer, so give me Matthews here. You get him on the money line plus 135. That's the official pick there. And we're going to stick on the prelims here. And one of the craziest lines of the whole card, and there's a bunch of them, right? But Max Griffin plus 260 here against Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis, where should he be minus 350 against anybody in the UFC is beyond me. Max Griffin, again, getting older, but Chris Curtis also not the youngest fighter either. There's only 2 years separating them. I believe Griffin's approaching 40, and Curtis is 37 or 38. There's no way for me that I would ever back Curtis at a minus 325 line. Curtis lost 3 of his last 4. Including a loss to Roman Kopylov. He barely eked out a split decision win against Marc-Andre Barriault. This just seems like it's going to be a split decision fight. I'll take the underdog here. I'm going to take Max Griffin plus 260. I've been a Griffin fan for a little while, and Curtis, he was in the PFL, and we all know what happened when he got into the UFC. So the first time. So Max Griffin plus 260, and then another shot here on the prelims cards. Junior Tafa versus Tuco Tokas. Tuco Tokas has only fought in the UFC 3 times. He's 0-3. So, not exactly crushing it here. And Junior Tafa hasn't had a very good record himself. So this is not quite regional level, but it's definitely getting there. I think we only have like 1 combined win in the last 6 fights. But, Tafa, solid striker. He takes a lot of damage, takes a lot of shots. And Tokos is more of a grappler. So when you see those two styles clash, in my head, you see striker versus grappler, not a submission threat, not really a great knockout threat either for Tafa. That screams decision to me, and that's just kind of where I go off of here. And last fight for Tokos went to decision, and the first fight for Tafa went to decision. So for me, I'm going to goes decision here. Over 1.5 is the official pick at plus 135, but decision also a good line in the plus 200 area. Not a fan of either of these fighters as well, but those are the official picks for UFC Nashville. Let's stay hot, let's stay clean, and let's make some money.
Alrighty, thank you so much for that, Eric. And I'm going to throw it over to Scott for quick hits. Why don't you take it away?
Yeah, so a couple of things I want to get to really quickly here, especially UFC Hall of Famer and PFL commentator Randy Couture, unfortunately hospitalized on Tuesday with burns after crashing at a Kansas City racetrack where he was practicing in preparation for his NHRA debut later this year. We certainly wish the Hall of Famer well. Tim Kennedy, another unfortunate situation here. This one, unfortunately, of his own creation. He has apologized after stolen valor claims with the former UFC and Strikeforce veteran, and as well as Army Ranger, saying that he was sorry for making up stories about earning a military honor, which he never actually earned. On the lighter side here, we'll switch over. Marcus Buchecha, he an IBJJF Hall of Famer, fantastically accomplished grappler. He has jumped over from one championship to the UFC, going to help out their heavyweight division. He's going to fight Martin Buday on July 26th in Abu Dhabi, so that's coming up really soon. Later this year, Raquel Pennington against Norma Dumont is in the works for Noche UFC, September 13, per multiple reports. This is kind of, a potential next title challenger at 135 pounds. We'll see. Also, relating to that card, Brandon Moreno has accepted a social media call out, or accepted on social media a call out from Brandon Royval to make their trilogy happen. No word if the UFC's planning on doing this, but yeah, 1-1. There's a fight potentially that, frankly, are these guys not going to deliver? Come on. Yeah. And then lastly, PFL has announced they have a new CEO. It is John Martin, a former Turner executive who would know very well that family of networks sports strategy. So that could help potentially with some TV deals and that kind of thing.
Media rights.
As it's going on the horizon. Exactly, Eric. Peter Murray, his predecessor, he now shifts over to CEO of PFL International. So he's not leaving the company.
Alrighty, thank you so much for that, Scott. A lot of interesting stuff to unpack there. So for any storylines that are going out there, we'll keep an eye on those. But let's move on to the final round where we talk about some of our homework. I guess we should start off with Eric's opinion on the Don Fry versus Yoshihiro Takayama Pride 21. Eric, what did you think about that one?
What'd you think?
Oh, just phenomenal. Don Fry, such a beast with the America shorts,
So
and
sick.
at the end of it, once Don Fry gets the TKO with ground and pound, I couldn't help but think that if there was a round break in between, I wonder if the fight would have ended differently. Obviously back then there was I'm not even sure how long the rounds were back then. Were they 10-minute rounds? Scott?
It was 10-minute first round, 5-minute second round, 5-minute third round if they used it.
That's weird. Back in Pride, weird stuff. But yeah, they were both exhausted. That's the only reason I say it after 3 minutes. The clinch punching thing, I've seen that before.
Yeah.
But I never actually watched the whole fight. So that's just phenomenal.
It's great.
Come on, Don Fry, man, such a beast, absolute legend, and totally worth his legendary status just based on that fight alone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So let's get to the fight that we all watched for
the new one, Jake.
Yes, the new one. Mauricio Shogun Hua versus Dan Henderson 1. I will say that third round, unbelievable.
Yep.
Very, very, very good. 4 and 5 were also great too.
Backside 50-50 heel hook. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Lovely stuff. I will say this. I didn't stick around to see who won. I watched through the 5th round and something happened and I got up and left. And I just
something happened and I got up and left.
Okay. Yeah, but I feel like this is still completing the homework assignment.
You know who won?
The fight. I don't know who won.
Then
But
you're gonna have to look it up later. I'm sorry. I'm
Uh,
gonna give you more homework.
okay, I was thinking you guys could break it to me and
Nope.
No, I was gonna do it. Dan
No.
Henderson,
No.
beast.
is it Dan Henderson?
Dan Henderson's such a beast. The way that he, in the fifth round when he gets the TKO, well, not getting TKO, he's getting ground and pounded, nearly TKO'd. Shogun Hua with just phenomenal ground and pound. Such good urgency. Very, very refreshing to see urgency in the fifth round. Something so seldomly done by fighters, I feel like, these days. But that's just my opinion.
No, I
Talk
could definitely
about two guys who left it all in there, right? Like they gave
yeah.
everything.
Yeah, and like you look at Dan Henderson's record, and I think it's like 31-14. But up until that point, he was 31-2 or 31-4, something like that. He lost several in a row after that. I think he currently has like a 34 and something record afterwards. But later in his career, he just had so many losses that
He
it
only
kind
fought killers
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah,
He came from the era where there wasn't anything to come up from. He was there when it was starting. So he was the guy everyone was coming up to. And he
Right.
fought so many of them off. So, I don't care about his win-loss record. Dan Henderson's one of the greatest fighters of all, probably the top 15 all time. And quite possibly like on the Mount Rushmore of American MMA fighters.
hard to argue with
Had a
that.
canceled fight against John Jones. Do we know? Do you, off the top of your head, do you remember why? Was it?
Good God. We don't have time for that one, dude. We got to talk about another week. That's
save
another
that.
thing.
We'll save that one. We'll
Oh,
talking
man.
about MMA lore. Let's talk about this week in MMA and the next homework assignment as well. I guess we should start off with that one. What is our next homework assignment before we get to this week in MMA?
Next one, you don't need too much setup for this one. This was the headliner of a Fuel TV. If you guys remember that, kids, Fuel TV was an actual channel. Two up-and-coming featherweights. The Korean Zombie Chan Sung-jung against Dustin Poirier.
I
Enjoy, kids.
I love that. Those two fighting in 145. Come on now.
Phenomenal.
So very
You're in
much
for
looking
it.
forward to
You're
that.
gonna
So
have fun.
what happened in this week in MMA, Scott? Before we go.
Just to send you guys out, we are one day past the 9th anniversary of UFC 200. Second 100 milestone. It was a bigger on paper than it actually ended up being. John Jones was supposed to fight Daniel Cormier in their rematch, but John popped for an anti-doping violation that nixed it. Hey, there's a reason why maybe we don't have to believe he's actually going to make it to the White House if this thing actually happens, right? You just never know with John. He still had Amanda Nunes become the champion for the very first time in the UFC, beat Miesha Tate. That was the headliner at the end of the day. It was the one that closed the card out. Brock Lesnar was on here for star power to fight Mark Hunt, which him and his legal team will never let the UFC forget. Cormier ended up fighting Anderson Silva, last minute band-aid. It was, good on paper, not so great when it actually happened. And there was also the rematch between Jose Aldo and Frankie Edgar. Really fantastic featherweight title fight here. Didn't end up being a showstopper, but it was, on paper, those are the guys you want to see. Stat card top to bottom. Truly great night, but could have been better.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Scott.
Honorable mention, your wife is in me DMs. That was a few years ago today.
Oh, there we go. Thank you for that, Laura.
Yeah, great history.
But let us know. I forgot to mention, please let us know in the comments what you thought of those homework assignments and on the next one as well. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Gentlemen, Scott and Eric, always a pleasure. I feel like this was one for the books. I will see you guys next week. Have a good one.